Did you know there's an angel so terrifying that even Satan avoids confronting him directly? His name is Camael, which means the strength of God, and he's the angel responsible for some of the most devastating divine judgments in history. But here's what will shock you. He's been preparing for one final mission that will make everything he's done before look like a gentle warning. While Michael fights battles and Gabriel delivers messages, Camael brings the wrath of God to those who have crossed lines that can never be uncrossed. He doesn't negotiate, he doesn't show mercy, and he doesn't give second chances. When Camael appears, it's already too late. But why is this angel of divine wrath suddenly becoming active again after centuries of silence? What signs indicate he's preparing for his ultimate mission? And what does his return mean for our world today? Stay with us, because what you're about to discover about this angel of absolute judgment will change how you understand both God's patience and his final justice. This isn't just ancient history, it's a preview of what's coming. When Camael looks at a person, a city, or a nation, he sees not just their actions but the inevitable consequences of their choices playing out across generations. He sees how their corruption will spread, who will be harmed, and what it will cost innocent people if the evil is allowed to continue. This is why even demons fear him. They know that when Camael arrives, there's no negotiating, no bargaining, no escape plan that will work. He represents the moment when God's patience finally runs out and his justice demands action. Throughout history, Camael has appeared at crucial moments when the spiritual balance of the world was threatened. His interventions have shaped human civilization in ways that most people never realize, removing threats to God's plan that could have derailed the entire story of redemption. To understand why Satan fears Camael, you need to know what this angel has already accomplished. His resume reads like a catalog of divine judgments that changed the course of human history, and each intervention demonstrates why he's considered the most dangerous angel in creation. The most famous of Camael's missions was the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. While many people know the story, they don't realize that Camael personally led this operation. He didn't just rain fire from heaven, he walked through those cities first, marking every house, evaluating every person, ensuring that divine justice was perfectly executed. Ancient sources describe how Camael's presence alone made the air in Sodom so thick with divine judgment that even the most hardened sinners began to feel an overwhelming sense of dread. Animals fled the city's days before the destruction. Children cried without knowing why. The very atmosphere changed when the angel of God's wrath arrived. Most people think of angels as gentle, comforting beings who bring peace and protection. But Camael is different. He's the angel you pray you never have to meet. His name literally means he who sees God, or the strength of God, and he represents an aspect of divine nature that makes most people deeply uncomfortable: God's absolute, uncompromising justice. Unlike other archangels who balance mercy with judgment, Camael has only one job: to execute God's wrath when mercy has been exhausted. He's not cruel or sadistic. He's simply the instrument through which divine justice operates when all other options have been tried and failed. Ancient texts describe Camael as one of the 7 archangels, but he's rarely mentioned in mainstream religious teachings. Why? Because his stories are too intense, too final, too terrifying for most believers to process. When Camael appears in historical accounts, cities burn, nations fall, and entire civilizations vanish. But here's what makes Camael truly unique among angels. He doesn't just punish individuals, he judges entire systems, cultures, and ways of life that have become irredeemably corrupt. He's the angel of last resort, the one God sends when a situation has become so toxic that only complete destruction can prevent it from spreading. The Book of Enoch describes Camael as having tremendous physical power, with the ability to command natural disasters, plagues, and cosmic events. But his most terrifying weapon isn't physical force. It's his perfect understanding of justice. He can see through every excuse, every rationalization, every attempt to justify evil behavior. But Sodom and Gomorrah were just the beginning. Historical texts suggest that Camael was involved in the fall of Babylon, the destruction of the Tower of Babel, and numerous other divine judgments throughout history. Each time, his mission was the same: remove threats to God's plan before they could cause irreparable damage. What makes Camel's interventions so terrifying is their surgical precision. He doesn't cause random destruction or mindless violence. Every judgment he executes is carefully calculated to achieve specific divine purposes. When he destroyed Sodom, he preserved Lot's family. When he struck down rebellious nations, he protected the lineages that would lead to Christ. But perhaps Camel's most chilling intervention involved the Nephilim, the giant children of fallen angels that we discussed in our previous videos. While the flood dealt with most of these creatures, some survived in isolated pockets. Camel's job was to hunt down these remaining giants and ensure they couldn't rebuild their corrupted civilization. Ancient texts describe Camel pursuing these survivors across continents, using natural disasters, plagues, and direct confrontation to eliminate every trace of the Nephilim bloodline. He showed no mercy because he understood that even one surviving Nephilim could eventually corrupt humanity all over again. This is what makes Camel so different from other angels. Michael fights against evil, but he offers the possibility of redemption. Gabriel brings messages of hope even in dark times. Raguel maintains justice with the possibility of mercy. But when Camel is sent, it means that all possibilities for redemption have been exhausted. The psychological impact of Camel's missions can't be overstated. Throughout history, there have been moments when entire populations suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of doom, when civilizations began to collapse seemingly overnight, when powerful rulers suddenly lost all confidence in their power. Many of these episodes can be traced to Camel's presence operating behind the scenes. Even Satan recognizes that challenging Camel directly would be suicidal. The angel of God's wrath doesn't operate with the same constraints that govern other spiritual conflicts. When he acts with the full, unlimited power of divine justice behind him. To understand why Camel is so feared in the spiritual realm, you need to know what happens when he encounters demonic forces. Unlike other angels who engage in extended battles with evil, Camel's confrontations with demons are swift, decisive, and absolutely devastating. The key to Camel's terrifying effectiveness lies in his unique spiritual authority. While other angels operate within certain boundaries and limitations, Camel carries what ancient texts call the unrestrained mandate, permission to use whatever force is necessary to accomplish his mission, without concern for collateral damage. When demons encounter Michael, they know they're in for a fight, but it's a fight they might be able to survive or even win under certain circumstances. When they encounter Camel, they know they're facing annihilation. He doesn't just defeat demonic forces, he erases them from existence entirely. Ancient sources describe how Camel's approach changes the very fabric of spiritual reality. Demons that have terrorized regions for centuries suddenly lose all their power. Possessed individuals are instantly freed without any ritual or exorcism needed. Dark spiritual strongholds that have stood for generations crumble at his mere presence. But what makes demons most terrified of Camel isn't his power, it's his methodology. He doesn't just punish demons for their crimes. He undoes their entire works retroactively. Every person they've corrupted, every life they've destroyed, every bit of chaos they've created, Camel has the authority to reverse all of it and restore what was lost. This represents a kind of spiritual death sentence that demons can barely comprehend. They're not just facing destruction. They're facing the complete negation of everything they've ever accomplished. It's as if their entire existence is being erased from the cosmic record. The Book of Enoch describes a confrontation between Camel and a group of demons who had been corrupting a particular region for over 1,000 years. When Camel arrived, these demons didn't try to fight. They tried to bargain, offering to leave peacefully if he would spare them. His response was simple: "Your time for bargaining ended centuries ago." What followed was described as the most one-sided spiritual battle ever recorded. The demons weren't just defeated, they were unmade. Their very essence scattered across dimensions so thoroughly that they could never be reassembled. The region they had corrupted was instantly healed, as if their influence had never existed. This kind of absolute authority makes Camel unique among all spiritual beings. Even Satan, who rebelled against God himself, recognizes that directly challenging Camel would result in his immediate and permanent destruction. The fallen angel who convinced 1/3 of heaven to rebel knows better than to face the angel who carries God's unlimited wrath. But here's what's truly terrifying about Camel's power. He doesn't use it randomly or in anger. Every demonstration of his authority is perfectly calculated, precisely measured, and executed with divine precision. He represents not the loss of God's control, but the perfect expression of it. Recent spiritual activities around the world suggest that Camel is becoming active again after centuries of relative quiet. Unexplained phenomena, sudden collapses of evil organizations, mysterious healings in places of great darkness, all bear the hallmarks of his intervention. For centuries, Camel has operated quietly behind the scenes, intervening only when absolutely necessary. But ancient prophecies and current world events suggest that his period of restraint is coming to an end. The signs of his return are becoming impossible to ignore, and they point to a final mission that will dwarf everything he's done before. The first sign is the sudden collapse of seemingly untouchable evil systems. Throughout history, corrupt organizations and individuals have sometimes seemed beyond the reach of justice. But in recent years, we've witnessed the rapid downfall of powerful figures and institutions that appeared invincible just months before their destruction. These collapses have a particular signature that's consistent with Camel's methodology. They happen suddenly, they're thorough and complete, and they often involve the exposure of hidden crimes that had been protected for decades. Most importantly, these downfalls often result in the protection or liberation of innocent people who had been trapped in these systems. Ancient texts describe this pattern as the winnowing, a process where Camel systematically removes corrupted elements from human society to prepare for a greater divine purpose. Each intervention is surgical, precise, and serves a larger plan that won't become clear until the final phase. The second sign is the increasing frequency of unexplained phenomena in places associated with great evil. Former sites of human trafficking, locations where ritualistic abuse occurred, buildings where corrupt business was conducted. Many of these places are experiencing strange events that can't be easily explained. Witnesses report sudden temperature changes, unexplained sounds, and an overwhelming sense of divine presence in these locations. In many cases, these phenomena are followed by the discovery of evidence that leads to the prosecution of criminals or the liberation of victims. The third sign is the emergence of what some call instant justice, situations where evil actions are followed almost immediately by precise consequences. Throughout history, divine justice has often been delayed, allowing time for repentance and change. But the gap between action and consequence is shrinking dramatically. This acceleration suggests that the time for gradual correction is ending. When Camel operates in full power, there's no delay between sin and judgment, no opportunity for excuses or escape. The fact that this pattern is becoming more common indicates that his restraint is being lifted. Perhaps most significantly, there are reports from various parts of the world of encounters with a powerful angelic being who doesn't fit the typical descriptions of Michael, Gabriel, or other commonly known angels. These encounters consistently describe a figure of overwhelming authority who appears briefly, accomplishes some specific task, and disappears without explanation. These reports come from diverse sources: pastors, missionaries, aid workers, and ordinary people, all describing similar experiences. The figure they encounter radiates absolute authority, speaks with undeniable divine power, and leaves behind changed circumstances that can't be explained through normal means. The scale of this operation is almost incomprehensible. Imagine every secret criminal organization being exposed simultaneously, every corrupt government falling in the same week, every system of oppression collapsing overnight. That's the level of coordination and power that Camel will demonstrate in his final mission. But the most remarkable aspect of this prophecy is what happens after the destruction. Unlike previous divine judgments that left vacant spaces where evil once stood, Camel's final mission will immediately replace destroyed systems with divine alternatives. New forms of government, economics, and social organization will appear as if they had been prepared in advance. This suggests that Camel's final mission is coordinated with other divine agents who are already positioning resources and structures for rapid deployment. The destruction and restoration will happen so quickly that humanity won't have time to descend into chaos during the transition. Some interpretations suggest that this mission will unfold over exactly 7 years, with each year focusing on a different aspect of global purification. Others believe it will happen in a much shorter time frame, possibly even in a single period of intense activity lasting only months. What's clear from all the prophecies is that when Camael begins his final mission, there will be no stopping it and no slowing it down. The spiritual momentum will build to a point where divine justice becomes an unstoppable force reshaping reality itself. The signs we discussed earlier, the accelerating justice, the collapse of evil systems, the increasing spiritual tension, all of these are preliminary activities preparing the way for this ultimate intervention. Camael is already working to weaken the foundations of corrupted systems so that when his full power is unleashed, the transition will be swift and complete. What makes these reports particularly significant is their consistency with ancient descriptions of Camael's appearances. He doesn't announce himself, doesn't seek recognition, and doesn't provide explanations. He simply accomplishes his mission and moves on to the next assignment. But the most compelling sign of Camael's increasing activity is the growing sense among spiritually sensitive people that something massive is building. There's a tension in the spiritual atmosphere that wasn't there even a few years ago, a sense that major changes are imminent. According to the most ancient prophecies, Camael's ultimate assignment isn't just another divine judgment. It's the final preparation for God's kingdom on earth. Everything he's done throughout history has been leading to this moment, and the scope of his final mission will exceed anything the world has ever witnessed. The prophecies describe this mission as the Great Cleansing, a worldwide intervention that will remove every corrupted system, every source of oppression, and every barrier to divine justice. Unlike his previous interventions, which were localized to specific cities or regions, this final mission will be global in scope. But here's what makes this prophecy both terrifying and hopeful. Camael's final mission isn't about destroying the world, it's about purifying it. His goal isn't to punish humanity, but to remove the spiritual parasites that have been feeding on human suffering for millennia. Ancient texts describe how Camael will systematically dismantle every network of human trafficking, every system of economic oppression, every source of spiritual corruption that has plagued humanity. He won't just punish the perpetrators. He'll erase their entire infrastructure and restore what they've stolen. For those who have aligned themselves with justice and righteousness, this prophecy represents the greatest hope in human history. For those who have built their lives on exploitation and oppression, it represents absolute terror. But perhaps most importantly, this final mission represents the end of Satan's influence over human affairs. The angel who has avoided confronting Camael directly will finally be forced into a final confrontation that he cannot win, escape, or survive. Understanding Camael's role and his approaching final mission should fundamentally change how you view current events and your own spiritual preparation. This isn't just ancient mythology or distant prophecy. It's a present reality that's already affecting your world in ways you might not recognize. The first implication is that divine justice is real, active, and accelerating. If you've ever wondered whether evil people truly get away with their crimes, Camael's existence and mission provide a definitive answer. No one escapes justice, and the delay in consequences doesn't mean there won't be any consequences. This should give you incredible peace if you've been wronged, oppressed, or harmed by people who seemed beyond the reach of human justice. Camael sees everything, records everything, and will address everything when the time is right. Your suffering hasn't been ignored or forgotten. But this reality also carries a warning. If you've been participating in systems of oppression or exploitation, even in small ways, now is the time for repentance and change. Camael's final mission won't distinguish between major perpetrators and minor participants. It will judge entire systems and everyone connected to them. The second implication is that we're living in what might be the final preparatory period before Camael's ultimate intervention. This means that every choice you make, every stand you take for justice, every effort to align yourself with divine purposes could be more significant than you realize. You're not just living your individual life, you're participating in the final chapter of a cosmic struggle between good and evil. Your choices about how to treat others, what systems to support, and where to place your loyalty could determine which side of Camael's judgment you find yourself on. The third implication is that the old ways of thinking about gradual change and slow progress may no longer apply. If Camael's final mission is truly approaching, We may be on the verge of transformations that happen faster and more completely than anyone expects. This means that preparations you make today, spiritual, practical, and relational, could be crucial for navigating the upheavals ahead. Building relationships with trustworthy people, developing spiritual discernment, and learning to recognize divine activity could be essential skills for the coming transition. Perhaps most importantly, Camel's story teaches us that God's patience, while extensive, is not infinite. The time for repentance, change, and alignment with divine purposes is now, while the opportunity still exists. If you've been putting off spiritual growth, delaying difficult but necessary changes, or assuming you have unlimited time to get your life in order, Camel's approaching mission suggests that assumption may be dangerous. But here's the hope in this reality. If you align yourself with justice, mercy, and divine purposes, Camel's mission represents liberation rather than judgment. You're not preparing to face divine wrath. You're preparing to witness the greatest victory over evil in human history. The story of Camel, the angel Satan fears most, reveals that divine justice isn't just a concept or a distant promise. It's an active force in our world, represented by a being of such power and authority that even the forces of hell avoid direct confrontation with him. Whether you find this prospect terrifying or hopeful depends entirely on where you stand in relation to justice and righteousness. For those who have aligned themselves with God's purposes, Camel represents the ultimate vindication. For those who have built their lives on exploitation and corruption, he represents the end of their reign. But for everyone, regardless of their current position, Camel's existence proves that our choices matter more than we might think. We're not just individual actors pursuing personal goals. We're participants in a cosmic drama that will soon reach its climax. The signs of Camel's increasing activity suggest that we're living in the final preparatory period before his ultimate mission begins. This means that the time for fence-sitting, gradual change, and delayed decisions is coming to an end. Your response to this reality will shape not just your eternal destiny, but your experience of the massive changes that are coming to our world. The choice between aligning with divine justice or continuing to support corrupted systems will soon become unavoidable. If this revelation about the angel of God's wrath has opened your eyes to the reality of divine justice operating in our world, you need to see our next video immediately. Did you know there's an angel whose job is so terrifying that he's called the Destroyer of Worlds? His name is Abaddon, and he's currently imprisoned in the bottomless pit, but ancient prophecies say he's about to be released. Unlike Camel, who brings precise justice, Abaddon brings wholesale destruction. He's the angel of the abyss, the commander of demonic locusts, and the being that even other angels approach with extreme caution. But here's the shocking part: he's not evil. He works directly for God, carrying out the most extreme divine judgments imaginable. The Bible mentions him by name in Revelation, but what it doesn't tell you is why he was imprisoned, what he did to earn his terrifying reputation, and what his release will mean for our world. The answers to these questions will shake your understanding of divine justice to its core. Click the video appearing on your screen right now to discover the truth about the angel so dangerous that God himself keeps him locked away until the final judgment. This isn't just biblical prophecy. It's a preview of the most terrifying divine intervention in history. Don't miss this crucial piece of the end times puzzle. Your understanding of what's coming depends on knowing about the angel whose very name means destruction. Click now and prepare to see divine justice in its most absolute and terrifying form.